Hey everybody, we're back and we're on the second floor of the Eisenhower home here. Alice is back to show us a really cool spot that's usually off limits to visitors. That's why we're wearing our protective booties on our feet here. So Alice, where are we here?
We're in Mamie Eisenhower's dressing room. So this is the area where she kept all of her clothing. These are all closets around us. She had her dressing table here. Mamie, of course, is remembered for, I think, two things, which I wish she was remembered for a lot more, but her love of the color pink and her tiny little bangs. She was a very feminine woman, and you can obviously see this in this space, but as much as I think this looks really into Mamie's personality, she enjoyed, being a woman and being very feminine, but I think that hides the kind of rod of steel she had going down her back. Obviously, being an officer's wife is not an easy life. And when Mamie meets, Lieutenant Eisenhower, recently graduated from West Point, he's not a person of means or power. So it's not like when they get married, she's suddenly at the top of the military. So they went to all sorts of holes in the wall all around the place. So they were in Panama and the Philippines at times when those were not very modern places. And she went with him unquestioningly. She accepted the life that he had. And they certainly struggled in their early married life. They lost their first son at the age of 3 of scarlet fever, something neither of them ever recovered from. So Mamie had to learn real quick what it meant to be married to a soldier. And Ike told her when they first got married that his duty would always come first. And that was something she had to learn to accept. And she excelled at it. Mamie was a socialite. Her father was a millionaire. So she grew up pretty privileged. But I think, back then you really did have to be an officer and a gentleman. I think Mamie made him a gentleman. She taught him those niceties of life. And definitely, I think, we might not have had General Eisenhower if we hadn't had Mamie behind him, supporting him.
So Mamie could be pretty strict then.
She could, yes. She was a general in her own right. She wanted her house to be run shipshape. And that, from the first house they had in Fort Sam Houston to the White House. In the White House, she used to make the maids vacuum backwards because she didn't like footprints on the carpet when they were done. So that does seem like a little harsh, but that was her fortress. Those were her soldiers. And that's how she supported her husband, by creating the best home and the best atmosphere for him as a private person and also as President of the United States. She was very aware of her position and she wanted to support him.
Ike had to have respected that, though, because
he
the
did.
fact that he's wanting that out of his soldiers.
Yeah, let's step into the master bedroom. I think you'll see how much Ike supported and respected Mamie by how their bedroom looks. Now, a lot of our visitors come here and assume this has to be just Mamie's room because of all the pink. No, General Eisenhower slept under the pinkest sheets on the face of the planet. They shared a bed their entire married life. In fact, when they came to the White House, the tradition was that presidents and first ladies had separate bedrooms. Mamie Eisenhower was not about to have that. She said she wanted to reach over and pat him on his bald head whenever she wanted. So they kind of shocked the White House by sharing a bedroom the entire 8 years they were there. But this really was Mamie's office space in a lot of ways. Mamie had suffered from rheumatic fever as a child, so she often didn't get out of bed until noon. Not to be lazy, but because she had this heart condition and it helped her start her day a little bit easier and get her through, obviously, many meetings and appointments as First Lady of the United States. So before noon, if you wanted to see Mamie Eisenhower, you had to come to the bedroom. She'd be propped up in bed with her hair in curlers and like little elaborate dressing jackets. And you just sit down next to the bed and say, okay, Mamie, what's the plans for the day? She wrote letters in bed. We have her writing table up. And she tried to, write to almost everyone who wrote her as First Lady as much as she could. She tried to handwrite letters, or at least even if she couldn't handwrite them, to make certain it was actually her signature at the bottom. As First Lady, she didn't really necessarily have a cause like a lot of modern First Ladies do, but any charity that asked her to support them, she would go to their banquets or write a letter. She was very busy and very active as First Lady.
Wow. It just showcases the human side again of these powerful people, that they still have qualities that some of us have in relationships, or some of us have in life, or some of us can't roll out of bed till noon.
Right.
Or need so many cups of coffee before we get started. Ike and Mamie are the same way.
Yeah. And I think also this room is very poignant because, I mean, in her later years after the general died in 69, Mamie was here till 79. So this was really where she spent her widowhood. Eventually, even the stairs got to be too much for her, so there were some days she didn't even go down to the first floor. She actually covered Ike's side of the bed in like books and candy and just something to make it feel heavy, so that she wouldn't feel the loss so much of the bed being empty. She would watch TV here. She has a lot of photographs of friends and family in this space. So this really, I think, is the room that most strongly reflects Mamie as a person and as a wife and mother in this space.
I never thought of that this was also her study.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah,
she did her business.
Yep, she did all of this. Is her desk here. So she often liked to write in bed, but she would do correspondences here, just have like, her calendar and things set up. So this was her office. And if you wanted to have an interview with Mamie Eisenhower, half the time it was going to be in her bedroom.
That also showcases how strong she is, because I could never work in my bedroom, because I would just see the bed and I'd be like, I'm just going back.
Nope, but she got it done. So she might be propped up in the pillows, but she still got her work done.
She's still doing work. That's awesome. Are there any pieces in here that really you like to showcase to?
Yeah, this is a piece that hardly anyone can see while they're on the tour. This is one of General Eisenhower's paintings. Okay. It's actually painted from their view at the chateau they were living in Paris while he was head of NATO before he ran for the presidency in '52. It's actually a second copy of a painting. Apparently the day their granddaughter Susan Eisenhower was born, he painted that one in miniature on the back of a postcard that said happy birthday. And he intended that for Susan since she had been born that day. But Mamie loved the painting so much, she asked Ike if he'd make her another one. So then he made her this larger copy of that painting.
That's awesome. That's one thing I love about this home, is that you all have so many artifacts that are theirs.
Yes, 95% of the house is original. Yeah. When you come here to the Eisenhower National Historic Site, you are seeing their objects, where they had them while they were living here. You'll see worn spots from, where they sat or they rubbed their hand every day. It's as intimate as you can get looking into their lives, and I think that's really important.
Right, because I saw that on this furniture here, the wear spots, and it's like, well, you could tell that they really used this.
Yeah. I mean, we do also. I mean, some of it is a little bit of just time and age, but I mean they use these pieces. Sure. They never really renovated the house after they finished it in the summer of '55. So most of these pieces were pieces they used year after year after year. They weren't like buying new pieces every year or redoing the house constantly. And also, I mean, a lot of these pieces, like for example, there's this dresser over here, that Sheraton dresser set. Mamie had purchased that when they were first married. But when they were first married, they moved so much. They moved at least 37 times before they moved to Gettysburg. A lot of their objects, they just couldn't take with them, depending on the size of the lodgings that the military put them in. So that was a piece she just adored. She had saved up a lot of money to be able to buy that when they were first married. And she was so excited, 50 years later, she still has it in her bedroom because of how sentimental it was to her when they were first married.
Right. That's amazing. There's so many awesome stories like that here.
Yeah, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you come here and visit us, you can ask for even more stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you, Alice, for showing us this part that is rarely seen, other than someone coming in and seeing it through the fence there, which is
pretty limited.
Where your visitors will see, but for showing us her makeup room and powder room and all that, that's pretty awesome. And it really brings home that these are real people. These are average persons who just did great things.
Definitely.
And it's really awesome. So thank you for showing us
Thank you for coming out.
Absolutely. And we'll be back in a few minutes with our final live stream. I believe we're going to go on the outside of the house for a little bit, and you'll be able to see the exterior. So stay tuned.